Hello, good evening, or wherever you are in the world. Hello, it's me, I'm Matt, and I'm back as your host again once more for Tales of the Whoniverse podcast. Tonight is a very special podcast. Now, before we get into it, let's go around and just introduce the other member of the house. Hello, Aidan, welcome back. It's only been a few seconds, but welcome back.
Yes, it's been 3,000 years.
Still in my bit, are you? Not if I have anything, stop dilly-dallying and get back to the TARDIS.
Yes, we've got to get on and review today's story.
Yes. Before the flying monkeys or the Wizard of Oz or something great crashes, we don't want the wicked witch of the West to turn up with Davros and Scar, and this will turn into a weird crossover.
Yes, and speaking of Skaro and Davros, that's kind of related to the story we're reviewing tonight.
Oh,
Firma.
absolutely. Yes, we're taking you back in time to the very first post-Divergent universe story written by the incredible Joseph Lidster. Now, before we go a little bit further, Joseph Lidster, who wrote this story, has at this point written for some of the most prolific stuff of Doctor Who. So for me, I had the very first CD on a side little story, which I got from him. Not directly from himself, of course, but this is when the Doctor Who exhibition was still in action. I saw a little CD in there, and I have it upstairs, and it's called Master with Sylvester McCoy and Geoffrey Beavers, which is one of the most incredible character pieces of the Master and the Doctor's relationship, on which started my journey into Big Finish. And funny enough, it was Joe's story that inspired me to enjoy Big Finish a heck of a lot more. Same as tonight's story, which is also Aidan's very first foray into Big Finish. Bit later in the timeline of the Doctor, of course, but it's essentially been designed that you didn't need the backlog from Storm Warning to appreciate this or the Diversion arc. It felt like it was a brand new start, you know how most Doctor Who's go. So before we kick off the review, let's start tonight with who is the Doctor? Of course, it's Paul McGann. Who is the companions? It's, of course, the incredible Charlotte Elspeth Pollard, India Fisher, and choices were made and opinions were given. Conrad Westmaster, aka Caries of the Divergent Universe. But yeah, sorry, after you wait.
No, just about just as soon as you went on with like choices were made, and I was like, oh my god.
But yes, which honestly would have been an incredible catchphrase from Caries. Could you imagine if he screamed at Charlotte Pollard, there was too many choices made and too many opinions given about the Daleks today.
And it's just like, Caris, what are you talking about?
Yeah, you sided with that Dalek last week. This week you sided with Davros. Too many opinions, woman. But no, this would have been an incredible thing. Big Finish. If you write Caries, please put that into one of the next stories that you're getting back. It'd be so funny. Like when Charlie and him like do something like the Master or somebody's like, Caries, it's my choice. I was like, well, opinions were given then and choices were made. I don't care what you're saying, Charlotte. I'm from another universe. You can't boss me about. But anyway, because we're sidetracking already. So tonight's companions have already been listed, but they're not the only familiar faces in tonight's story. If you can guess from the cover of Terra Firma, you can already guess some Pepper Potts already on the cover. And a little certain creature called Davros. Or is it Davros? Because his mind is all broken and fractured from the last time he saw the Doctor. So to kick off tonight's review of Terra Firma by the incredible Joseph Lidster. This story, when I first heard this story, because obviously I've heard the Divergent arc at this point, where for Aidan this was a different point of view. He listened to this as his first story, so we'll do a bit of a difference in comparing and contrast. Halfway through the arc, I thought, okay, this is going good, but we needed to go somewhere. After the next life, for me, this is when it truly kicked off for this crew. I thought his debut was great. I thought the next life was great, but then it felt like, okay, there was a bit of stories that just were a bit iffy and a bit stuck for me for enjoying Carries. It felt a bit rushed, some of the stories, and I wasn't quite enjoying it. And it's not Conrad's fault or anybody else's, but because the Virgin arc was so condensed, I didn't quite enjoy it as much as the Out of the Universe arc. And this story, oh boy, this was an emotional roller coaster. This story, it had some really good comedy. It had some really tragic moments, and I just thought to myself at the end of the story, this is truly where Big Finish fans should stop. You know, like these days with like Big Finish, stop thinking, oh, it's too hard work to go and enjoy like the backlog. From Storm Warning to this is an absolute treat and reward because it unravels the mystery of why, movie rights aside, why there's no Grace and Chang Li. It gives an explanation to the Doctor's chronology, a bit more into like why he despises the Daleks even further. Now we know he hates them, but this utter carnage of a story proved like Terry Malloy, which I would say is his finest hour for audio. Before I continue my thoughts, let's go to you, Aidan, because obviously you'll have a lot to say about your first story for Terra Firma.
Ah, yes, because this is actually one of two like post remembrance of the Daleks Davros stories that immediately follow on from this. Now, if I had to choose, like, if I had to choose either War of the Daleks or Terra Firma, it's a tough. Yeah, it's Terra Firma. Like, I'm sorry, I was gonna go into a bit of a joke there, just like, it's like a really tough decision, but yeah, Terra Firma is like easily the far better story, and yeah, it's like it does have a lot going for it. It's like not just like my favorite Doctor and TARDIS team, but also like as a sequel to Remembrance of the Daleks, it does go into the whole theme of like actions have consequences, like because like the Doctor destroyed Skaro, like in Remembrance of the Daleks, and yeah, after that, Davros does end up getting lost in a time vortex and is rescued by what's the species called? Like the Nekastani. Like he's rescued by a Nekastani ship. And Davros does thank them in the nicest way he can by killing all the crew. Yeah, so yeah,
Yeah.
you could tell he really thanked them quite a bit there.
Oh yeah, most people you give them money, you give them a handshake. What did Avarice do? The usual, just
No,
exterminating whoever came in contact with him.
yeah, but this is also like where Davros's like admittedly petty revenge starts. Like he kills the crew, and then yeah, this is going to go into a bit of like a spoiler thing. So if you don't want to hear spoilers, I'll give you 3 seconds to start from 3, 2, 1. Yeah, the Doctor and his companions at the time, like they end up finding Davros, like his companions, like who are also who are in the story, like Samson and Griffin. No, Samson and Samson. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just tripping up on my words today.
No, 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 no.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
Samson
Samson
and
Griffin. Yeah, and
yeah,
Gemma
Samson.
Griffin. Yeah.
Yeah, a brother and sister, like who traveled with the Doctor for a bit before Charlie, and yeah, if you've ever listened to the Start of the Turk, they are mentioned there as well. Like, but that's just mainly just a bit of a reference. But yeah, Davros does something despicable and actually like takes them away from the Doctor. Like he takes them away and erases the Doctor's memories of them, and messes with the TARDIS, which is like
Yeah.
it's just like it's only the beginning as well because after that, Davros does something. He like he was alone and he needed to create something. so he creates the virus, like specifically the virus that he and the Fourth Doctor actually pondered about. Like, if you had a virus, if you had a virus that could destroy all life, would you use it? And he just goes ahead and creates it. And in revenge for Scarrow, the the doctor, like
No,
Davros, yes, just the doctor takes over the Earth. No, but Davros like takes over the Earth, like, and turns like 8 billion like people into like Daleks, like no factions, no anything, just Daleks who are supposedly loyal to him.
yes.
And
So
yeah, and the
after you.
Doctor finds this out, like, yeah, you could really tell, like, during the story, like, he feels like really immense guilt like, for like what had happened, like, because he's like, do you expect me to help you, Davros? Like, when he's going through his like mental degradation, like fighting like for control over his body, like between Davros and the Emperor, the personality that's trying to take over his mind. And it was interesting to see because Davros's plan in this story was like, it was like to try and get the Doctor to kill him because he had a second virus that would actually like destroy like everything, like not just like take over the Earth, but yeah, it's like honestly like a pretty diabolical. Like, it's probably like, obviously aside from like the whole Time War, this is probably one of the most evil things that Davros has ever done. All of which to just get revenge of the Doctor. Like, that's all it was for. Just for the Doctor destroying Scarrow.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, this is. Oh, so sorry as well for folks as well who are listening to this. I've had a bit of Wi-Fi issues, so if I'm trying not to speak over Aiden, so it's just lagged a little, so my apologies. And
That's
also just apologise as well for the Gemma and Samson thing because I could hear it, but then obviously it crossed wires, so just to clarify that. But
no, that's all
yeah,
right,
for
lads.
me, sorry.
Yeah,
but,
sorry, I
but
was
for
just gonna
me
say
as well,
yeah, right.
so after you, after you, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it was just mainly just me. Yeah, just saying that was okay, like, because obviously I was stuttering earlier, but yeah, it's all good.
No, it's all right. It's completely. Where was I? So yeah, with Terra Firma. So we've already established the basic premise of this story. It's a simplistic story, but it's. I would view this as a horrifying story. Out of any Dalek story, a big finish, you take away the Time War, you take away a normal story. This is when the Daleks are at their best. They are reduced to support staff in this, really. They are controlling and policing the city, while Davros is in his head battling with the Emperor Dalek persona that we saw a little about in Remembrance. And as far as Davros is concerned, the Doctor is going to be his executioner or savior, because as far as he's concerned, this is the closest to a friend he has that we see as time goes on, especially when we go to Peter Capaldi's from. That he claimed he wanted a friend of the Doctor, but obviously we know that's all lies of fabrication.
Yeah.
This is Davros at his finest hour. To take companions of the Doctor and essentially erase their minds and turn them into spies, like to track him from the Divergent Universe. He's been watching in the TARDIS since Storm Warning. Even a little bit further back than that, because if you consider the timeline, look, if you've been following the Mary Shelley stuff, when she's literally mentioned in her first story, traveling with the Doctor, he said, she's aware of his friends, Gemma and Samson, and he said, yeah, no, that's fine, we'll go back to him in a little bit, which obviously a little bit later was after her trilogy. So from that moment when he left them alone and after he went back for them, it all changed. Memories were gone. Everything was there before. But I really appreciated the sides of Gemma and Samson that was so different to companions. I think it was tragic when you knew Samson knew there was something in there, but it was all gone. Like he forgot his own sister because of Davros. But when the memories were screaming out like everlasting matches, and the fact he was so happy to hear the TARDIS, it's like the nightmare was over. It's like he came back into reality. And it's just a really tragic tale that companions had to suffer because this is a war of Davros. This is Davros literally taking vendetta against the Doctor in this story. All because, as you said, Hayden, it's all petty revenge for Skaro, which was blown up. But Paul McGann and Terry Malloy, what a chemistry that was, the sparking off of the nastiness between each other. Like, there were points of the shouting matches where you'd think the Doctor was literally ready to push Davros out of that wheelchair of his or that life support because he was had enough. It's literally the anger that built up for doing this. It's like a how dare you. Poor Carries, I felt so sorry for in this story. As we know later with the Battle of Giants Causeway, he saw the benefit of the doubt and the Rootons. But for what happened with Gemma, a killer and an assassin monk he was, perhaps, in that universe, but seeing the disgust of what Davros did to her and the Daleks really deeply affected him because she became that Dalek agent. But
Yeah.
Charlie, in a really dark theme, and I'm ever so sorry, this is a trigger warning for people listening to it, and I'm ever so sorry. This is really dark for a Doctor Who story. You have a companion on the verge of taking their own life because of what's happened. And that is quite powerful stuff in this story. That you had a companion who virtually had nothing left to live for and was ready to end it all if Charlie hadn't intervened. And I think the theme of that is don't let anyone be alone during that as well, because you never know what goes on in people's mind and thoughts. And it was just really. But this is the power of Joe Lister's writing, a bit like James Goss and a few other established writers. He took some really dark moments, but there's also some humorous moments. I found it incredibly funny when his mother was revealed to be part of the British Resistance. That was so funny when she was here in the charge. Harriet. Harriet is just a character we need back in Big Finish. That incredibleness to like, oh yeah, we're just metal drunks at the party. We know we're just la di da. We don't care. As soon as it was revealed, Samson's like, "Yep, I'm all ready. I've got my memories back." So, okay, swing into action. Let's lead the resistance. I was like, "What?"
I was like, "What? You didn't think we were just like drinking the night away? No, we had. This is all part of the plan. Like, because like if they knew we were just plotting and scheming, they'd get suspicious of us."
I
And
think it was
speaking of
safe.
because you mentioned the British resistance, but there's also French resistance, which is a bit of a plot twist when you get into like part 4, when it's or at the big end of part 3, it's revealed that the French resistance is actually the Daleks.
And again, that's what I mean. This is an incredible tonal shift. You've got the Davros story, which is really menacing. Then you get the British and the French resistance, and it's like this is an amazing comedic moment. And it's like, how did we get into this? But this is what became like the Eighth Doctor's obsession with France, I believe, because obviously later with the Monster One Motra and this like timeline, it's like he's got this thing where he goes back to them all the time now. It's like when he came to Paddy, well, it's the City of Death, of course, but to go back to, I like the fact this also honoured a certain little Big Finish story. If you catch the little reference when Eight was talking to Davros, he mentions the Hereford title. Davros was 60, that he tried to work together once with him and it didn't work. Davros just tried to shut him down quickly for that one. It's so sorry for me, camera's falling all over the place, so I do apologise, people. That seems to be like in the Blackpool Tower.
Yeah,
No,
so I was going to interrupt and say one thing because when you were saying about like how it's like kind of like linking to Davros, because I do think I can't remember if I mentioned this in the Juggernauts review, but I do think like Terra Firma like is like the end of like that sort of like Davros trilogy. That's like a loose trilogy. That's like of showing Davros in between like the 80s Dalek stories, like on After Remembrance. Like,
Yes.
yeah, because
So,
it was like sort of explained in like that, like the Davros Connections documentary in like the Remembrance of the Daleks special edition, and I think the season 25 box set. I'm not sure if it's included there, so I may be wrong in that, but that documentary went through his life and it talked about like showing like his kind of like mental degradation as time went on. And even here actually does kind of link to some parts of the previous two Davros Big Finish stories, like kind of like because I know there's like the whole idea of, like, I think this is going to sound weird, but I know there's a talk about, oh, what was it, like Arnold and Lorraine Baines like talking about like transferring your mind into the body of a clone, like at one point. Like, I'm not sure if you remember that from Davros, but it feels like that was like sort of like weirdly foreshadowing Terra Firma, like in a way. Like again, I might be just like pulling at straws here, but it was an interesting like kind of link.
mhm. For me, I think what I found interesting with this whole story of Davros is, like, as we know from time to time, it never works out for him, does it? All the factions ultimately betray him in the end. But this time, oh, this is even better. This was a story where the Doctor blackmailed the Daleks. It's like, oh, here's the virus. If you don't take away your little master, I'm going to release it on you all. I'm taking me out. It's like the Doctor had nothing left to live for after what happened with Gemma and Samson. So it shows no matter what incarnation, do not be fooled by the Doctor. If you mess with his friends, you're messing with him. Or them, sorry, whichever body. I was just talking about the camera issue. I don't know what's going on tonight. It's like it's flying everywhere like a helicopter. Bear with me one second.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a Tales of the Whoniverse episode without at least something going wrong.
Yeah, I'm so sorry about this. Here I am talking away, and it looks like I'm having a drunk night in a hotel.
Oh, dear.
Um, Speaking of which, since we've just highlighted a certain doctor's audio with Davros, the funniest thing I found in this story was the little callback to what was the original setup of Revelation of the Daleks, which they've done on purpose. So originally, as we know at the end of the story, before the cancellation at the time, they're going to reveal that the Doctor was taking Perry to Blackpool. And in this story, where does Charlie and the Doctor go, I'll take you to Blackpool! And I think that's a nice little nod to Revelation of the Daleks for the original ending they had planned, because it felt really intentional with that one.
Yeah, although it would be funny if they just did it just the exact same way as like the ending of Revelation of the Daleks. Just like, all right, Charlie, I'll take you and Carrie's too. Da 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 da.
Skegness, it's revealed in Skegness.
No, plot twist, they're actually going to Shetland.
No, even further plot twist. They're going to Buckingham Palace because why not?
I mean, you never know. It can go anywhere in time and space. The TARDIS.
Yeah. Yeah, so for me, I think what I enjoyed incredible about this, it's the music is also so atmospheric and so depressing. It's just quite fun. It's quite
Yeah,
an amazing
it's like
score.
oh,
What do you say, sorry?
I was thinking like it was like really eerie as well, like in certain
Yeah,
scenes as well.
even from the moment of the get go with Gemma and Samson, it sounded like it started off really well and it got really dark really fast. And that's the power of the music score. That's why some Big Finish stories always stick out in my mind. Besides the incredible sound effects, it's the music. Terra
Yeah,
Firma had the most, I think it's got one of the best scores of an early range story because it just showed like there was hope in the story, but there's such surrounded by darkness throughout it as well.
yeah, yes. Honestly, it's like really is just that good of a soundtrack. Like, yeah, I'd say the only other soundtrack that I think could really compare, like in terms of memorability, is Arrangements for War, like with the Sixth Doctor and Evelyn, because honestly, that soundtrack can just make me cry.
I think this story if you're new to Big Finish, I'd say this is a really good place to begin your journey with the Eighth Doctor, because though it's picking up from the back end of an arc, it is designed to be that way, where you can just come in and start with him. Like how Aiden, he virtually started with Terra Firma here, and then he went to do the backlog, and he's loved it ever since. So I'd
Yeah,
say personally as well, this is a story that you don't need to be worried. All you need, if you're a television fan, is just watch the 80s Dalek trilogy, or even watch Genesis, because that's brought up a bit here again, because Davros highlights the centuries of past since Skara for him when they first met.
yeah, and obviously, of course, the virus.
Yes. So if you're looking for an essential Doctor Who listen, I'd say this is one of the essential ones, because you are coming towards a great starting point. You're learning about not one companion, you're learning about four new companions for you. If you've not heard Charlie, this is literally your chance to get to know her. And yeah, this is four companions. This is the first time you get to hear Gemma and Samson, which unfortunately at this moment of time is still their only appearance in the stories. And we do hope that one day, when they sit down with Paul McGann, they will get that box set recorded with Gemma and Samson to explore the gaps. Because again, I know some people don't want to show don't tell for that era, but personally, if you've got Joe Lidster and say your John Dorneys or your Lisa McMullins leading that type of set, it could explore a lot between of like the fun side that was missing on the Doctor before he met Charlie and before he met Mary. Also meant that. But I said to Aidan before the podcast, and I'm going to my controversial opinion of this story. I know I don't normally have ones for this. It would be that this should have been Davros's final appearance, because he's virtually dead at the end of the story. Because when you see the Emperor come out in him, when the Daleks come for him, that's how he dresses himself. He's the Dalek Emperor fully, and Davros is gone. So this is how they should have done him personally and left his story be. I don't mind Davros, like, from Genesis up until that moment, like when they're dealing with the back stuff, but they should have done like this be the definitive end of Davros and explore that crazy side of him going forward.
Yeah, because I do think like until Russell like brought Davros back in like the Stolen Earth and Journey's End, I think that probably would have actually been the end of Davros. Like but yeah, it's like I mean, we still have to learn the story about how like Davros does wrestle back control, because I might be wrong on this. Like I don't think it's ever actually explained.
No,
Like
because by the time of Time War 4, we obviously know that Davros is dead at the start of the Time War, and the one on the cover is
yeah,
a multiverse version, so we don't know how we got out of that predicament.
yeah, because we don't really know how he like gained back control of his body and then went on to like die at the hands of the Nightmare Child, or in actuality being rescued by Jalal Khan.
See, that's an idea they could explore if they want to, because I know that would just be like you could just replace Terry with Nick Briggs. The only reason I'm saying that is because you would only really need Terry when he's actually fully playing Davros. A Dalek Emperor is essentially something Briggs could do, and then obviously reveal when he takes back control, goes fully back into Terry. This way, you could still have both actors playing that role, but at that moment of time, it's more like a passing of the baton until ready to get his mind back in order.
Yeah, but still, it was really interesting to see like how Davros like over the years like was basically becoming more and more like his creations, and then at the end of Terra Firma, he just his mind is like completely gone. The Emperor is dominant.
Yeah, and he doesn't believe this is his fault. He doesn't believe anything from Scar is his fault. He believes it's all the Doctor's fault. But the line when he said that "I hate you, Doctor" was such screaming at him for it. You could tell this was coming to the end of Davros's mind.
Yeah, it's like yeah, and Davros really only has like himself to blame for like everything that's like happened in his or most things that happened in his life. Like like he can't really blame the Doctor for like things like going to more Davros, like the story, like into what happened with Sean, and the Doctor wasn't responsible for the accident that ended up leaving him as he was.
I'm going to say something completely different as well here. I think if you look at Alien's Master and him, they both have got are similar two sides of the same coin. They both are fond of the Doctor's companions. Yes, they're enemies and a nuisance to them, but they would never do anything to destroy or permanently kill them. They just use them as bait to always trap the Doctor, who's the prey. This is the first time Davros is literally gone off and did something so horrendous it was like a point of no return. And the Master has never killed really the Doctor's companions. He's never come close to doing it because he's got such respect for them, same as Davros. So for Davros to have done this and be out of the box showed that there was nothing left to live for Davros. And he literally had been spying on him. So he's been watching the whole Rassilon ordeal and everything on the Divergent arc. And he just grew bitter and ready to slap by the time he came back.
Yeah, I mean, you could just say he's just watching Doctor Who the whole time.
God.
Yes.
But that's what I mean. It's incredible, like how you'd think both Ainley and Malloy had similarities, that they were fond of those companions. But this is the first story where all bets are off for Davros.
Yes.
Because it's funny, because Mel has a fondness from Davros because of the Juggernauts. Perry's got a fondness from the Master, and then Charles the Time Lord. Even if you've not heard him, they both are still fond of those characters. So it's quite funny to me in that respect that they both have similarities when you put them both together.
Yeah, like
But
yeah.
before we wrap up on Terra Firma, do you have any final thoughts about the story?
There was yeah, because I was going to bring up one thing that like before I go into my final thoughts, which is like you know how like when like Keris was like rescued from like by the Doctor, like and like he made the deal with the Daleks, like to give them their Emperor. Like so we
Mm-hmm.
learned like during that jet like Gemma had died, but I'm trying to think like it felt like kind of like glossed over like in a way like I'm like I might be like looking too deeply into it because it felt like they went from Kara's being sealed inside the casing to later on like him being shown to be like fine but like just kind of like like tired and exhausted like probably like stressed all hell from the whole ordeal and then basically saying that Gemma was like had died like I might be misremembering it. It's like, but yeah, except yeah, again, like later on, like we see like the people that Karras had killed, like in his head, like Lyda, his wife, like the test subject from the tunnel, the Dalek that he tore apart, and Gemma.
And I wonder if he did that to Gemma out of kindness to spare her life because of being a Dalek agent.
Yeah, but yeah, because that's kind of like my theory about it anyway. But in terms of my final thoughts, like Terra Firma to me is like it's one of those stories that I always hold in high regards. Like, and that's totally not biased because it's my first Big Finish story. No, what do you mean? No. But in all seriousness, like this was the story, like to get me like into like the expanded universe. Like, if it wasn't for like this CD here, I probably wouldn't be as big of a Doctor Who fan as I would have been like a fan of TV stuff, but yeah, I would have like not really been as big a fan as I am now. I wouldn't have heard like any of like eight stuff. Like
Hmm.
and weirdly enough, I don't think I probably would have like met you guys. Like this is going to be a really sentimental thing, but yeah, it's like it probably would have just been like a fan of just the TV stuff and not really given the EU stuff a chance. And now I've listened to like great and so many great stories, and then some stories where choices were made, which yeah, we'll get into those ones later. But yeah, it's Terra Firma. As I say, it's like one story that I'll always hold high in high regards. And if anyone were to ask me, like, on a story that I'd personally recommend, then Terra Firma would easily be up there as probably one of, if
And
not the Eighth Doctor stories, or Big Finish stories in general for me.
yeah. Well, sorry, I only said hand there. What I was going to say to follow up with that is it's funny that we both have a similar connection, like of two Joe Lister stories that set on the path to enjoy Big Finish. For me, as you know, it's the one with the rotting quartz master because I remember seeing a CGI clip of it on YouTube and it was absolutely terrifying. And Terra Firma, I don't know what it is about Joe Lister's writing, but the fact that he went into the mindset of two iconic villains of Doctor Who lore and made them. I don't know how to describe the. It made them more prolific. That's the word, more prolific than what. To me, he's the reason Jeffrey Beavers is the master for me on audio. Therefore,
Uh,
all the other started to came about was Joe Lister. And same with this. For me, this is where Jerry Malloy was Davros for me the most, was this one.
yeah, it's interesting like how Joseph Lister's written like both our first like Big Finish stories.
And they both have got this great, like, look into it. The Doctor never hated the Master, which is the difference in that story. He saved him when he was a child, essentially, by swapping places with that bully. And yet, in this story, the Doctor never hated Davros until it found out like what actually happened. So no matter what the Daleks have done, no matter how much you take away from the Doctor could never hate Davros, and this is the closest he never wanted to see him again.
Yeah.
So my final thoughts on this episode, for me, Terra Firma is just, for me, this is the story that made me enjoy Carries as well. This was, for me, this was a whole redemption story because he was good. The character was good when he started, but this is when it started to really elevate him for me. And you could still see he was haunted by but the only one thing I wish, but obviously they couldn't because of the time, was address a little bit about how he actually felt coming into this universe. Because I think they mentioned bits and pieces, but they don't really truly sit down with him as he went on. But what was even funnier in this story is in their last story, they were both at odds ends, him and Charlie. In the next life, and the Doctor threatened to both abandon them in the Divergent universe. Here, Charlie accepts Carey's no matter what. And that's the type of writing I think they should have had from the get go. The series one of Carey's run, the Divergent universe, reminds me a lot of Colin's run, where they felt too abrasive. That this felt like in the second run, like Child of the Time, this felt like this was just right. It was the right choice of people to play the roles. It was just the writing sometimes went up and down.
Yeah. And I know we'll definitely go into like some of those stories like later on, like Scared Cat and Something Inside. But we'll get to those.
Yes, but now, and as a good revelation, following on from tonight's one, we will be back again for another podcast soon. The next Big Finish one is, John Rob. It will be the story that we just mentioned, like a bit earlier. It's one that means a lot also to Aidan, and it's something that has also been signed for Aidan by a little actor called Colin Baker recently and gave, yes, that's right, you had it right, we're going to do arrangements for War next.
No, I'm going to be looking forward to reviewing because, I mean, I'm going to have to try and make sure I have some tissues ready as well because, as I mentioned earlier, that music just honestly makes me cry.
So what we're going to do, Ada, before that one, obviously, is go away, re-listen to the story beforehand. The project one. It's Project Lazarus, isn't it? That's set up for this one.
Yeah, it's Project Lazarus that leads, it's Project Lazarus, and then it leads right into Arrangements for War.
So that's your homework, Aiden. You're going to go do Project Lazarus Part 1 and Part 2. Stop that. No, we're going to do Arrangements for War. And then we'll do Project Lazarus as a separate review another time. But we're going to do this just because, obviously, it's an incredible story. It's been a while since we've done 60 on here.
Yeah. Who knows? I was gonna say maybe the release will have extra features, or as Colin would say, even more of me.
So before we go, people, so we are coming back into this shortly as well. So we will be doing Doctor Who: Joy to the World, but we're just working out the details behind the scenes. So stay tuned for that one. We are going to be back doing Classic Who soon as well. Tales of the Whoniverse Presents, it will be coming out shortly as well. So we will be doing more of those within the new year as well. So we are just going to be starting to vote within house. We'll be doing that sooner. It just depends on the availability, as always. And if not, so we're going back into Classic Who reviews, Big Finish. The book reviews will start at some point. I've just got to sit down and start reading some of these so I could be on here with Aiden as well to help oversee some of these.
Yeah, I know. I've got to actually try and get good at trying to do solo reviews, because honestly, it's harder than I thought it was. I'll admit that. But I think it will happen.
So for Classic Who, we've talked quite a lot this year about certain doctors, and obviously our next review is following on from a certain Umbrella Man tonight. Will be Remembrance of the Daleks, is the next one from the Umbrella Man. And then afterwards, we're going to take, where are we in the calendar now? We're near in December. So we're going to try and get a little bit out for you for the Christmas run. And coming over the Christmas period, we'll also be doing a tier list. So we're going to invite some members back and do some tier listing, because who knows, choices were made and Nardol's costume was worn.
Yes, I'm just waiting for Raven to just come in here and just be like, what was that? What was that?
So we can apparently reveal over the Christmas period, we will be doing, this will be first before we do George of the World, we'll be doing a look back at the entire Christmas specials. See from the very beginning, from Tennant's first appearance as the Doctor to now with Shooty's first Christmas special, which we're going to probably tackle at the end of it. George of the World, of course, is his first one. But if we don't have time to include him, we're just going to do every Doctor that's had a Christmas special. Bonus content will be Jodie's New Year's special stuff, because obviously we're not secluding the holiday stuff, because, all comes to Christmas and then it's post-Christmas. So thank you so much again for joining. And as I say, so it's a good night for me, and it's a good night from you, Ada. So say good night.
Good night, everybody. I hope you all enjoyed tonight's episode, and don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Tales of the Whoniverse YouTube channel. And one more thing before I go. Yes, Queen, slay. Gotta do that for old time's sake.
Of course. Right. Until then, take care and thank you so much, and see you all soon. Ta-ra!
Hello, this is Kerry's, and you've been listening to the Tales of the Whoniverse podcast.